Hello everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Microsoft AZ-800 series. More specifically, today we're going to be looking at episode 5, which is about group policies. So we're going to be taking a look at what exactly are these group policies, how many you get, the various kinds you get, what can I go and do, that kinds of jazz. And then also, where and how do we actually go and configure these mysterious magical things called group policies. Now for this one, I'm going to be mostly giving you guys a demonstration today. So we're going to be using the same virtual machine of Server 2019 that I've been using in the previous videos. So let's switch over to that virtual machine. All right, guys, here we are on that usual Windows Server 2019 virtual machine. So I'm going to start off way in the beginning. I'm going to go first of all to my tools menu and to my normal users and computers. Now, before we start with anything here, let me just minimize that. Remember, that's my domain. And these folders we see here, those are containers and organizational units. So the containers, which they look actually the same, are the ones that look like normal folders that are built in by Windows Server when you just go and install the server operating system or when you go and install the Active Directory software itself. Containers are there by default, where organizational units, those ones are stuff that you go and create afterwards yourself. It's a fancy name for a fancy folder, like I've said in the previous episodes. So in the previous episode, being episode 4, I believe, we made this branch here called New York, Paris, and Tokyo. You'll notice the icons are slightly different. Those are organizational units. And if I expand these branches, I made sub-departments in this branch. You can see HR, IT, marketing, sales, and so on. And I went further, and in some of these departments, I even made computers and users. So that department's obviously got its own users and its own computers. Same can be said for HR and all the other departments in all the other branches and so on and so forth. So why did I structure it like that? You're going to try and structure this as simple as you possibly can because it's going to make your life easier when it comes to assigning things called group policies. Group policies allow you to go and tweak and configure all kinds of things regarding your people, their accounts, and their devices they're using. More specifically, their desktops and their laptops. There's over 3,000 settings you can go and configure on their devices or their accounts. This includes blocking things, allowing things, turning things off, or just generally configuring things. This could include things which is very simple, like your wallpaper. I think I'm going to use a wallpaper for today as an example. So I can go and configure something like the wallpaper. That's not going to block you or allow you, but if I would like to have a certain department have a certain wallpaper, or even the whole company for that matter, I can go and configure that via group policy. I mean, sure, you can go to each PC and walk to that person and go and change their wallpaper manually yourself or ask them to go and do that, but that's a tedious task. What if you've got a few hundred people or a few thousand people? That is not something you want to go and do. So wouldn't it be easier if I can do it once and apply it to a whole department or a whole branch or the whole company as a whole? And you can. That is where group policies come into play. Now, these OUs we've been creating here on the left-hand side, those folders, you can go and link an organizational policy to it. So at the moment, you're not going to do it here. We create the organizational units here in users and computers. But when it comes to actually linking policies, we're going to minimize this for now. We're back on a server manager. One way you can access this is to go to your tools. And unlike earlier where we clicked on users and computers, we're going to be clicking on this option here at the bottom. It says Group Policy Management. Alternatively, you can just go and run a search for it here under Cortana if you want to. I can actually go and type in Group Policy. See, it already pops up. Group Policy Management. Potato does the same thing. There we go. So we have our domains, or domain in my case. I'm going to go and expand my domain. There's my domain. Expand that. And there you will find we see our organizational units. Domain controllers, NY for New York, Paris, and Tokyo. But if you compare it to the Active Directory, you'll find we don't see these other folders. We only see the ones that look like that. So there's my domains controllers, and there's the other ones here. Those are organizational units. We do not see this one here. It says foreign security principles, managed service accounts, computers, built-in. None of those are showing because they are containers. Only the ones that we made, which are organizational units, only they show because you can only link an OU to them. I can link it there. I can link it in a subcategory. I can link it in a subcategory. It depends on what it is you want to configure and where you want to link that policy or to whom or what you want it to apply to. So going back to the group policy management console, here we are. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go specifically to IT department. Let's say for a moment, I want to go and configure the wallpaper for a certain group of people. It could be for a whole company. So in other words, burningiceptech.com. It could be for a branch. It could be for a department, or it could just be for users. In this case, I'm going to link the policy to my users. So I'm going to make a policy that's going to change the wallpaper for all my users in a certain department. In this case, it's going to be the IT department. Then I'm going to make a policy that's going to change the power settings. Now, at the moment, my wallpaper on my people's computers is probably going to be this default one, which we see on server. So at the moment, I'm on server 2019. My users are 10 to 1 going to be using either Windows 11 or Windows 10. Probably Windows 10 at the time of the making of this video. So I'm going to go and change the wallpaper to this one here. I've made a folder here on my desktop. It's a blank wallpaper. So if I open that up, it's completely blank. It's black. So at least then I know I'm not going to get a copyright claim on this video. Anyway. So it doesn't matter. It could be any picture for that matter. So the first thing you want to go and do is we want to go and share that folder, wherever this folder might be. So I'm going to right click on that folder, properties, sharing tab, advanced sharing, share this folder. I'm not going to bother with the name. I'm just going to keep everything on the defaults for now. That should be fine for now. Apply and OK. We're not explaining sharing permissions. We just want to share the folder. Close, and there we go. The folder is shared. Now, something I forgot to go and do, we also need to go to the security tab and configure users. So the moment we configured sharing, I forgot to go to the security tab. Apologies for that. Edit, and I'm going to go and add authenticated users. So I think that should be fine. Let me just run a search for that and see if I can pick it up. Drag this open a little bit. Authenticated users. So any people that's actually been authenticated, this will apply only to those people. Okay. Okay, and you can see they will be able to read and execute. That should be enough for the wallpaper, so that should be fine for now. Apply. Okay. And okay. So we're all set with the wallpaper. Now we just need to go and create a group policy and actually link that wallpaper to all the people we want it to be linked to. So let's go back to our group policy. So to whom do I want to go and apply it? I would like this to apply only to the IT department, only to the users. So where do I want to link the policy? I want to link it right here to the users right there. So I'm going to right click on that department. There's an option here that says create a GPO. So a group policy object is what that stands for. In this domain and link it here. So I want to link it exactly right there, only to that department. Anything above that it's not going to apply to. So it only applies downwards. Kind of like in permission inheritance. So I'm going to go click there, give it a name. It doesn't matter what you call it. So I'm going to call it wallpaper so we can clearly identify the purpose of this. Okay. You'll notice there's like a little arrow there now. So if I expand that, it says wallpaper. And there's nothing been configured there yet, obviously. Nothing. Now right click on that sucker. Go to edit. And now what we're going to go and do is we're going to go here to user configuration. So I'm going to expand a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see. Get that out of the way. User configuration, policies, and then administrative templates, desktop, and then desktop. Now, before we go ahead, I just want to point out that you don't necessarily need to know exactly where you find what policy. Honestly, even people with 20 or 30 years of experience don't know where most group policies are. Sometimes, if it's something you do regularly, if it's a certain policy that you change regularly, like every second day or every second week, then you might know where it is exactly because of muscle memory. But unless it's something you configure quite regularly, you're only going to have a more or less idea where something is, or no idea at all. So even I myself, that's been doing this for more than 20 years, I find myself going to Google or wherever and searching on Google where I would find a certain policy. And in Google search results, without even going to a website in most cases, it's going to show you the breadcrumb. The breadcrumb is basically the path you need to go and take to get to that policy. There's no shame in that. Luckily, this is also not covered in the exam. In the exams, they do not expect you to know the exact path to a policy. They may or may not require you to know what policy to configure. For example, it'll be the one that says desktop wallpaper. But under no circumstances in the exam are you expected to know how to get to that breadcrumb there. You don't need to know that. I haven't seen that in the exam since 2007 or 2008. So it's been more than a decade. So obviously I want to go and configure one that says desktop wallpaper. I'm going to go ahead and right click on that, edit. You can see at the moment this is not turned on. So we're going to go and turn that on, enable. And you're going to go and specify the share path, or I suppose some people will call that the UNC path. So what is my share path? I'm going to go and type it in here. It is my computer's name, which in my case is, if you look at the top there, I think mine is, oh no, that's just the server's name. That's not the computer's name. So this computer's name is Burning Ice Tech. Doubted myself there for a moment. -DC1. I wanted to use this name at the top, but then I remember that's the name of the virtual machine. I called the virtual machine Windows Server 2019-2, but this server has been named as Burning Ice Tech, and it's a domain controller, so I named it as -DC1. / where is it? It's on the desktop, so I'm just going to say wallpaper. It's a folder called wallpaper, by the way, so you would remember on my desktop here, it's called wallpaper. So we're going to go back there, wallpaper. What was the picture called? It was called blank wallpaper. And that's a JPEG file. I hope it's a JPEG file. Whether it is or not, that's fine. You know, you get the idea. So you're just going to specify wherever this wallpaper might be. In my case, it's on a desktop. If it's not on a desktop and it's in your picture folder, which is probably going to be, you just go and specify that. Because realistically, who's going to go and drop the wallpaper on the desktop? That folder is just going to look silly. But this is fine. It serves its purpose. I'm going to click on apply. Okay. And the policy has been linked. So from this point forward, when your users log on to their PC, this is now assuming the people are from that department. So let me just close this up. Oh, we're in the right department. So when people log on from the IT department, only people in the IT department, when they log on, they will have that policy applied to them, being the wallpaper one. So their wallpaper will not be whatever their wallpaper is. It's going to be the black one, the blank one I just assigned. So that's going to overrule. Now, if anyone has already been logged on at this point in time, it might not apply immediately. So if you're going to try this at work, you might find that whatever policy you apply, whether it be a wallpaper or something else, it does not kick in immediately. I've seen quite often that people need to first log off, sometimes even turn off their machines and turn it back on. And then you'll find it's like a few second delay where it's going to say updating group policies. And even though it says that, it still might not kick in immediately. Some group policies sometimes take between half an hour to a few hours to actually spread out through the system and all that. So if you don't see an immediate change, that does not necessarily mean you did something wrong. It sometimes does take some time to reflect the changes. So just be patient, wait a few hours. If after about a day you don't see the changes, then you can go and investigate, because then you probably made a boo-boo. Now as for power settings, what kind of power settings can we go and configure? So if I go here to control panel, do we still have control panel on Server 2019? Yes, we do. If I go to control panel, and I go to, let's say, system and security, power options. Now on a server and desktop PCs, you'll have various kinds of power options here. Normally there's a balanced one, which is recommended. There's a high performance one, and depending on what your machine looks like, you might even have a third one here. It says power saver. That's more for laptops. It's got a battery and stuff like that. Obviously, if your power cord is not plugged in, you ideally want your battery to last as long as possible. And if you choose power saver, it'll go and dim the screen and turn off anything that you don't need on that laptop. Now you can go make your own custom power plans that uses more power or uses less power for certain aspects. But if you're going to go and do it here on a server, on a client computer, it's only going to apply to this server or that client computer. But if I were to go and do it in group policies, specifically on the Active Directory, if I go and do it here in the group policies and I assign that as a policy to every computer in a certain department, then I can go and tackle a whole group of people and not just have to go to each and every PC one by one. Not something you want to go and do. So I think for the next policy, let's go and link it to the computers in IT departments. We're going to go here on the computers, create a new policy this time around, and let's call this power, I don't know, power saver maybe. I think that's what they normally call it, this power saver anyway. So that's the default name Microsoft uses. Okay. And once again, we're going to go right click on that, edit. And this power saver plan is obviously going to help you save money. So if you're a company that's trying to save money or cut costs, wherever you can, this is going to be a great way to save money for your company. Is if you can go and apply a power saver policy to your whole company as a whole via group policy. So it's going to save you a tremendous amount of money if you've got a tight budget at the end of the month and you don't want to go and do that. So you'd be wise to invest in some sort of policy like this. I mean, it's not going to cost you anything but a few minutes of your time. To go into the group policy, invest some time into this, and at the end of the day, you're going to save yourself tremendous amounts of money. So I'm going to go and expand this. This time around, we're not going to go to computer configuration, user configuration. We're going to go to computer configuration, preferences, control panel settings. Once again, you don't need to know where this stuff is. You can find this on Google. So if you would like to go and configure power settings and you find yourself not knowing where power settings is or whatever it is that you want to go and configure, a quick Google search is going to tell you what you need to know. Most often, you don't even need to go to any website. I've seen 3 out of 4 times you can actually see the breadcrumb in the Google results, which is pretty cool. I'm going to expand that. Power options, that's the one we're looking for. I'm going to right click on power options, new. Obviously, nobody's using XP or older nowadays, so it's going to be Windows 7 or newer, probably Windows 10 and newer. So we're going to say power plan at least Windows 7. Click on that. Now, we are not updating an existing plan. We're creating a brand spanking new one. So we're going to go click on create. What do you want to call this? I'm going to call this save insane amounts of power and money. That's way too long of a name. But that's besides the point. I just want to have some fun here. So realistically, you're going to go and call that something nice, power saver or, green power saver plan. You want to keep it short and sweet. I'm just being silly today. So anyway, I'm going to click here on apply. And okay, I obviously haven't configured anything here, but realistically, you're going to go in here. You're going to go and choose what you want to go and adjust regarding this power plan. Do you want the screen to be very dim? What exactly do you want to go and configure? At the moment, mine is as default as it gets, but that's besides the point. Just wanted to show you where you would go and how you would go about doing it. That speaks for itself. I'm going to click on OK. And there we go, folks. We have created 2 group policies. One was for the users. Let's close this up. So we've created one for the users, and we've created one for the power saver here. So power saver has been created. I think I might have done it on the wrong one. Hopefully I didn't click on wallpaper, but you get the idea. So with wallpaper, after you've created the group policy, you can go and call it whatever you want. You just need to go and right click on it afterwards, edit, and you just go and browse to wherever wallpaper is. And with regards to power saver one, you just go and right click on it. You can call it whatever you want. Right click on it, browse to the power saver options, and there you go. Now I've simply only given you the example of power saver and wallpapers in this video, but it's absolutely not limited to those 2 examples. As I said earlier, there's over 3,000 things you can go and configure in group policies. Blocking things, allowing things, turning things on and off, or just in general configuring things. So this is configuring. That's not blocking or allowing anything. It's just configuring power options, configuring wallpaper options. So I wasn't exactly allowing or blocking anything here. But that can also be done via group policies. So now I think you guys have got a much better idea of what group policies actually is. And when we go back here to Active Directory, now you understand why some of these are containers and some of them are organizational units. Unfortunately, if I were to go here into users, I cannot go and link a group policy directly to a user account or directly to a group. You have to link a group policy to an OU, being these fancy folders. So remember, OU is just a fancy name for a fancy folder that's got a fancy function to link a fancy option to it. Fancy, right? All right, guys, I hope you've learned something. Hopefully after this video, you have a better idea of what group policies actually are and how, when, and where you would actually go about using these group policies. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It does help promote my video and my channel when you guys go and do that. YouTube algorithm and all that, as they say. And if you've enjoyed this series and you would like to know when I go and upload new content, smash that subscribe button down below with the bell icon. and I will see you guys next time on episode 6.
If you love me, let me know. If you don't, then let me.